We start the show with some breaking news out of Memphis. The Grizzlies announced that they have parted ways with head coach Taylor Jenkins. Jenkins spent almost 6 years in Memphis and has the most wins in franchise history while at the helm. President and GM of basketball operations Zach Lyman had this to say about Jenkins, quote, "I'm genuinely appreciative of Taylor's contributions to this team and the city over the past 6 seasons. This was a difficult decision given the consistent and tangible development of our players and overall success under Taylor's leadership. I wish Taylor the very best going forward." Now joining us, our senior insider, Shams Charania. Shams, this news was shocking to us all, but the questions we have are why and why now?
Cassidy, sources tell me that the Grizzlies simply felt that Taylor Jenkins had progressively lost the locker room and their play had plateaued and declined the second half of this NBA season. From the perspective of how they played against teams over 500, they severely declined in their opinion. They had lost 9 consecutive games by an average of almost 13 points against teams with an over 500 record. They were 7th in defensive efficiency the first half of the season. They have now declined down to 20th. And so this is stunning for the Grizzlies, stunning around the NBA. Taylor Jenkins immediately becomes among the top head coaching candidates for this next cycle. Teams will likely start pursuing him really quickly here in the coming weeks as teams shape their future. He's someone that had 250 wins, the most in Grizzlies franchise history.
Yeah, the Grizzlies are just a second team to have a coaching change with 70-plus games into the season while having a winning record. What's next for the Grizzlies now that Jenkins is out?
Cassidy, sources tell me they have already named their interim head coach. It will be Tuomas Iisalo. He is a Finnish-born former coach, professional player. He's a lucrative assistant, their top lead assistant for the Grizzlies. They've invested a lot in him. He is known for his offense, his creativity. They've changed their entire offense this season. They're now first in the NBA in pace. They've run the fewest on-ball screens and dribble handoffs per game since that stat was being tracked 12 years ago. And so this is a Grizzlies team that is now going to look a little bit different and potentially look even more drastically different offensively.
Shams Charania, thank you so much. We continue our reaction to this breaking news. I'm Cassidy Hubbard in for Malika Andrews, and now joining us is our NBA reporter who covers the Grizzlies, Tim McMahon, NBA champion Kendrick Perkins, and our senior writer, Brian Windhorst. And Brian, let's start with you. On a scale of 1 to 10, how shocking is this news?
It's way up there. It's like a 10. It's a 10, and I'm fascinated. So obviously, it's easy for me to take this position because I don't have skin in the game. From an observer standpoint, this is one of the more unique things I can remember seeing in the NBA. So what we've got here is we've got a real philosophical conundrum between the front office of the Grizzlies and Taylor Jenkins. And this was kind of playing out during this season. Last year, the Grizzlies asked Taylor Jenkins to replace his entire coaching staff. And then they went out, as Shams, and hired guys who were sort of off the grid. They hired, Tuomas Iisalo from Paris Basket, a French team, where they had to pay a bunch of money to buy him out of that contract, and they're paying him a bunch of money. There was a bidding war for his services with the Wizards, and they hired away another assistant, Noah LaRoche, who. He and Iisalo established this new offense, which is completely different. But what's so fascinating and so interesting about this is that the Grizzlies had been going away from this as they've struggled over the last 6-8 weeks, because they were playing great at one point. They went through a stretch right before the All-Star break where they'd won 10 out of 11. But as they'd struggled and as Ja Morant was out of the lineup, Taylor Jenkins started to pull back. And Shams was talking about how that they would never run screens and they wouldn't run typical actions you would see in the NBA, and they would have this sort of symphony offense, high pace, high movement. When things got tough, Taylor Jenkins started coming back. And so basically what it looks to me like is the Grizzlies front office said, no, we're going to play this way. And even if that means doing it in this weird part of the season, Cass, they've got a massive game tomorrow against the Lakers. That's a team, this game tomorrow could potentially determine the seeding. And so I think we were probably headed for a separation between Taylor Jenkins and the Grizzlies. But basically, they said we're going to do it now because we want to see how we developed the system to play this year. We want to see how the system works. So fascinating. And one more thing I want to point out, and I'm sorry for the filibuster. I'm just really fascinated by this move. This is not the way Ja Morant has had success. And Ja Morant and Desmond Bane, over the course of this season, their production has gone down. And Ja has talked about this. Ja has talked about how he kind of liked the old system better. Well, this is the message being sent. Ja, we're going to play this way, the way we want to play. And so that, to me, is fascinating, not just for these last 9 games in the playoffs, but what it says about that marriage itself going forward.
Interesting. Perk, so 10 out of 10, shocking for Windy. Also fascination. Are you surprised at all that this, especially with the playoffs right around the corner?
I am surprised, but it's kind of like I'm in my LaToya Luckett mode again. I'm torn between the two. On one hand, I'm surprised for the fact that the Memphis Grizzlies are right in the thick of things. They're in the postseason. They're one of the top teams in the Western Conference, and I get it. They've been struggling, right? But they're still a team that could make a push. Taylor Jenkins is still a hell of a coach. Hell, he helped establish, alongside with Jared Jackson and Ja Morant, this culture. On the other side of things, I kind of saw this coming, right? Because you could tell when the team is not on one accord, especially the front office and the head coach. It was too many times this season, that I saw Ja Morant standing in the corner. I saw Ja Morant not being the primary ball handler. And I was thinking to myself, this is not what made Ja relevant. This style of play can't work in the postseason. And I'm glad Windy pointed it out that Taylor Jenkins wanted to go back to the style of old, meaning Ja, you're the head of the snake. Ja, dominate the ball, make plays for others, and the word trust comes to mind. And you see these great cultures around the NBA, OKC, right? You're looking at Dagnall and Sam Presti. They're on one accord. Obviously, Eric Spoelstra and Pat Riley, they're on one page. Brad Stevens, Joe Mazzulla, they're on the page. Like, it's crazy when the front office doesn't have the head coach back. And secondly, I have always been against head coaches not being able to hire their assistants. Like, what?
Yeah, the surprise here is not that he was fired, it's the timing of it. As soon as there was the pretty much complete overhaul of the coaching staff this summer, around the league, people said, hey, Taylor Jenkins is in trouble. There was certainly an anticipation if the Grizzlies got bounced in the first round that Taylor Jenkins would be fired. He will be one of the top coaches, if not the top coach, in the market this summer. But there's been this offensive philosophical tug of war in the franchise. They are dead last in the league by a wide margin in pick and rolls. This is a pick and roll league. They are zigging when the rest of the league is zagging. And it's not just Iisalo who's going to get a trial period here as the head coach of this team. You know, Windy mentioned Noah LaRoche. He has his fingerprints all over this offense. Taylor Jenkins tried to pull back some control, but when you hear, hey, he lost the locker room. By the way, that includes Ja Morant, obviously. I would say primarily Ja Morant. Of course he lost the locker room. Players know when a coach doesn't have any juice, and a pretty good indication of that is he didn't get to choose his assistants. He didn't get to choose the offensive system. This was coming. It just got here sooner than later.
So he didn't get to choose his assistants, and he really didn't have his star for the majority of his time there. I mean, Ja Morant, whose entire career has fallen under Jenkins, missed 164 of 464 games, or 35%. So we're going to talk about this a lot more throughout this show. But coming up, just when we thought Cooper Flagg had our